So welcome to the third session on the secret of the Veda. Today we will be exploring Indra. Indra is the secret master who can help us to build the lab. When I say lab, our whole cognitive system and its evolutionary process, Indra is the key. So to begin, when Sri Aurobindo started writing for the world in 1914, when he began Arya, he started writing many books simultaneously, The Life Divines, Synthesis of Yoga, and one of them was about the Vedas, the secret of the Veda. In the very first chapter he wrote was about Indra, the colloquy of Agastya and Indra. And it's a very short essay where Agastya had reached a stage in his inner development and he was trying to reach the highest heaven or the source, and Indra will come and say, no, you cannot bypass me. And big struggle happens between the two. So Agastya was aided by Maruts, and Agastya tells him, look, Maruts are your brothers, and why are you not allowing us to cross over? And Indra will say, no, you have to work under me, work with me together. You are not offering sacrifice to me. Unless you offer sacrifice to me, you cannot go forward. Then Sri Aurobindo unpacks this. That unpacking happens across many writings. But the key there is Maruts are really the power of thought, the prana shakti, the life force that has reached the capacity for thinking in the mind. The thought, the power of thought with its high intensity has reached this enthusiastic drive, and Agastya was going with this great power in him to access the highest. And in the many of these ancient texts we will find that cannot be accessed by thought. If you try to reach it by thought, it will vanish. So the issue is the limitation of thought, the power of thought in itself, and then what is required to take the thought forward to reach the highest truth. So Indra represents, he is the giver of light. He is also the master of higher ranges of consciousness, whereas thoughts are arising from below. It is born out of the lower range and it is struggling to go upward. And in the human mind, it acquires this tremendous capacity for, like present civilization, the rational thinking, the scientific thinking, and by thought we are trying to access that which is beyond thought. That cannot be grasped by the power of thought. And the battle is on, and we can see it all over the world. There is a battle with the gods, and humanity is trying to conquer the forces of nature, and the forces of nature say, no, you can't just conquer the highest. You have to surrender your thought. But we are still sharpening the power of thought to reach that highest. And we can see already scientists like Donald Hoffman. Recently I was watching an interview with him where he is referring to the current understanding scientists have reached. Not all, many who are also already quite influenced by Eastern thought. They are also confirming that what our cognitive system is saying and what our thoughts are cooking up as a narrative is not reality. It is a story. And it is more like a user interface. Like you look at a screen and there is all the recycle bin and icons and all that. You don't see the complexity that is behind. What we get as a reality is just that skin. And behind there is a great complexity, and there is a reality that is out there, we cannot access it. And the realization that we are living in an illusion, it's already hitting hard. That even my sense of my identity, me, all that are really shaken. But now how do you access that which is beyond thought? What are the other cognitive modes? And how mind can be trained to access that which is beyond. So this is the challenge, and many scientists are beginning to regularly practice meditation to silence the mind and to get out of this notion of me, my thinking power, all that. So here is this ancient Agastya doing it, who is trying to access that highest, and Indra is blocking. And Indra is asking, you have to offer sacrifice to me. Now, to unpack this, we need to trace this whole development of thought itself and how thought gets refined and refined and refined and acquires that sharp capacity of rational intelligence that can cut through things. So first is what is called the sense mind. Through the senses we are getting knowledge. Sensory experiences. Sensory experiences bring all kinds of data. Out of that, our mind is deriving some impression about reality. And there is also rasa in sensory experience. Senses seek pleasure. And here is again connection with the Vedic god Soma, Soma rasa. There is a seeking for pleasure. And sense mind is, through its sensory experiences, it is seeking pleasure and it is deriving that juice and drinking. And that's what makes the gods grow. But when we get stuck at that level, and if we don't offer Soma rasa to higher ones, we cannot go beyond. That's like level number 1, where this rasa of the senses are to be dropped, and something else that is higher than sensory knowledge is to be sought. So science has already done it. Say for example, they, from a sense point of view, Earth is the center, the stable thing, and sun is moving. From senses point of view, this is the reality. You cannot say no. I see it, I experience it, sun is rising. But the truth that the sun is the center and earth is moving around, it is not something that we can access through the senses. That is buddhi grahyam. This first level is indriya grahyam, other one is buddhi grahyam. Buddhi can pick up that knowledge, not senses. And for that we need to drop that sensory level understanding to a higher level of abstraction that is more of a rational intelligence. And out of that it starts composing that rational intelligence based pictures that are not what we can access through senses. So we are creating now the narrative about cosmology, Big Bang theory. And there is a whole lot of theoretical models that are constructed through pure rational intelligence. So that is, and this capacity not everyone has. Few people have. Most people live at the level of senses. We have rational intelligence as a potentiality, it is not developed.
Isn't rational intelligence a power of still of the senses?
Starting point is the senses. We need sensory data. Out of that, we make correlations, we find patterns. Out of that, we make, if there is smoke, there will be fire. We make connection between things. But that is still the physical mind, what Sri Aurobindo calls the physical mind. It depends on external data, verifiable physical data. And science heavily depends on that. You need facts. Fact-based. In integral yoga psychology, we refer to as the externalizing mind. Mind that is externalized, it is plugged into the physical reality, and through senses, it has to validate. And that's a solid ground upon which it is building. Here is a fact upon which it is building. And the first thing is deriving what is beyond the senses. Then it goes further beyond into, say, a mathematical modeling, a mathematical logic. And this is where philosophical and mathematical logic come into the picture. The metaphysical thinking come into the picture. So the first level research is physical. There is sensory data. So you have a hypothesis, you need data, you study and you prove this way or that way. That is level number one. Then that is what is beyond is accessed through abstract thinking. That is where mathematical modeling, philosophical thinking come into the picture. That whole question about existence, these are all beyond senses. And then the philosophers are thinking hard, mathematicians are trying to model it, and model is converted into technologies and various things. Then they say there is a truth behind things. But it is still a half-truth reflected and refracted by the mind. And that battle is going on currently in the world, and the higher powers are opposing human progress with this thinking power. And this is where even when that highest abstract thinking about even philosophical thinking, that cannot reach. We can create models, mental models. And here Indra says, I will not let you go. All this knowledge that we create through mental modeling, it still doesn't feel sure. It is still a theory. It doesn't have the assurance. It doesn't have the strength to stand on the ground and say, this is a possibility and we can validate. It has a validity within this physical domain, within these laws, but beyond that we don't know. Newtonian physics works within certain domain, then there is quantum physics and all that. So then thought reaches that limit, philosophical limit and mathematical modeling limit and the scientific thinking limits. Then what do you do? How do you proceed further? And that's where Indra come into the picture. So there is a whole development of thinking power. And Agni in the mind is, there is an observer, Sakshi, standing, observing everything, and that's again, Sakshi everybody acknowledges. In today's world, you have to be an observer. How to observe, how to be aware. That's the first point. But then the power of thinking, when it is a willed thinking, it has its limitations. So here, things are rising from below. So we have the Vedic cosmology, where Agni is here below, and there is solar world, and that great truth consciousness is above, and there is this ascending evolution, and Indra is mediating the process. And we are here with our little mind, thinking how to get there. And Indra is saying, stop. You have to listen to me. Obey my rules, my authority on those upper domains. These are higher ranges of the mind. We can symbolically or simplify it and say Indra is the power of intuition. Intuition that enters the mind as some flashes. So psychologically, what is required, what is demanded from Agastya and what is demanded today from humanity is development of intuition. So prior to that is reason, before that is instinct. There is higher consciousness involved here that operates as instinct. Even in matter, the higher consciousness is involved. That is operating as a mechanical law that is governing the physical world and its structures and its processes. There is a truth in matter, very mechanically operating, and then in the life forms it becomes instinct. And in us, we begin to refer to this as a gut feeling, or something is, I know this is true, but I can't explain. I can't explain in terms of reason. It is below reason, sub-rational. Something is buried inside that knows the truth, and I don't know how to explain it. It's a pre-rational. Then there is a post-rational intuition that is above. And Indra is standing for that upper level capacities. How to develop that? And he is asking, you have to surrender. This fellow has to surrender. Reason, rational intelligence driven by Marut, the power of hypercharged prana shakti that is acting. And that's the battle that is currently ongoing, and we are in it. We are all in it. Humanity is in it. Agastya was in it. How to develop the power of intuition, and how do we train the whole cognitive system to open to intuition? So therefore, Patanjali begins the yogas.
Differentiate between instinct and intuition. It's not primarily.
Instinct is intuition, but operating subconsciously from below. You don't know the reason why. There are certain things, like at a biological level, there is a biological truth that is working through. Like body regenerates itself. There is a whole tremendous intelligence that is working. Even in regular matter, there is a mechanical intelligence that is still a higher truth consciousness operating at like a mechanical force. In a biological system, there is its own laws, biological laws that is operating, and the whole, for example, the entire reproduction takes place because of certain intelligence that is operating through. Above that is, we begins to sense there is some truth, like the reason why you leave your jobs and things like that and come, because you are, this is movement of, we can say, Sharama. The Vedic imagery is the hound of heaven who comes to the cave and looking for the fire, looking for the lost son, looking for the lost cows. That's their imagery. Psychologically, we feel it as if, I know I must go to Auroville and feel like I need to settle down there, but it is scary, it's insecure, I don't have the security of the current thing, and you try to get help from reason, but you don't really have so much to explain in terms of all that. But somewhere you have to go. And that is the general presence of that intuitive impulsion that is coming from within, and which comes actually from the psychic being. But psychic being has to translate it into the terms of the mind, terms of the emotions, sensations. So it has to express through these layers. So we feel it somewhere in the heart. This is right. And we are caught between these two powers. One is the power of reason. Then there is a intuition operating at a lower level. We don't have access to intuition operating at a higher level. This higher level intuition includes reason. It will come to you with a complete clarity on why you want to do this, why you must do this or that. Not only that, it brings the order, the power, the strength. Whereas the lower one doesn't have that. It gives you the pointer, go this way. You don't have this full confidence because reason is still not supportive. And on the top of it, that intuition gets eaten up by all the dasyus, panis, vrikas, all these characters are there. So they gobble up. It doesn't operate, it doesn't work in its free way. It is there. It is there. That's the reason why we are taking this bold step of leaving behind many things and taking on an adventure. As Mother says, it's an adventure of consciousness. And she says, leap before you think. Thinking will take you here. When you drop thinking, then you are in a big trouble. Because, and that's what Patanjali is asking, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. All the Chitta Vritti has to be brought to silence. But then there is a whole stuff that is coming up. Fears, anxieties, all the forces from the lower nature. So all the pythons and vrikas and all those characters that we discussed in the first session, they show up. And there is this little intuition that is pointing you to go forward, which you enter into. And so that's where the battle begins, where you have the intuition that is calling you and you want to go there and the lower nature is holding you back. But even if you come out of the vritras and vrikas and dasyus, sense world, and they are called sense traffickers, misers. They bind you into the sensory world and its limitations. Even if you come out of it and come to the pure reason, even that is not sufficient. So on the one hand, when you develop pure reason, you lose the capacity for the natural instinctive intuition that is there. Now that's a big problem. For a simple man who has not gone to universities and developed the intellect, it is much simpler. They operate from the instinct, and early humanity was operating from that simple vital intuition. Intuition operating in the vital. So intuition operates in the mind, operates in the vital, operates in the physical. When it is working in the higher vital, that is where we feel, I want to go. I can't explain, but I know this is true. And the trouble is, animals and primitive man, people, they have this intuition very well, unspoiled, very clear. They are connection with nature. They are in tune with nature. They work smoothly. But we have left that behind. We have the reason. And unless you satisfy the reason, reason won't let you go. Wait, I won't let you go. You pay the sacrifice to me. You convince me that you are safe, you will have enough money when you fall sick, there is someone to take care of you, and to your old age there is some savings. You convince me, otherwise I will not let you go. So reason is asking for its own sacrifice, its own yajna. Say, give me this, then I will let you go. So yoga is a stage where reason, the power of reason, the power of thinking that took us to this far, it become the obstacle on the way. And on one hand, an excellent intellectual development is a great help, but then down the line it become a barrier. There is one of the aphorisms of Sri Aurobindo where he says, reason was the helper, reason is the bar. Reason was the helper, reason is the bar. Similarly, ego was the helper, ego is the bar. Ego, individual personality, is also forged out of that ocean of that unconscious collective mass. Out of that, a tiny little individual has been forged out. You are no more just another brick in the wall. So, you are essentially that light that has taken birth here and then evolving down from here. And you have the memory in you. All of us carry the memory deep within. I belong to that. And the Agni, according to Veda, his home is the sun. And he knows instinctively, something in the matter knows, I have to go back to the sun. I have come from the sun. Even physical structure, science says so. It is out of the sun and its explosion, Earth and all other planets are formed. And on Earth, out of this sleep of matter, the light is slowly pushing itself and emerge as plants and the whole evolutionary journey, and in man, light become conscious. And it develops the rational intelligence capacity and the quest for truth. And science is on that, quest for truth. But it is using the power of reason. So are the rishis, they were searching for that quest. And they knew, in the ancient model of knowledge, they knew there is a world of truth, sun world, they can reach. And these are some of the pioneers who confronted these issues with Indra and understood the problem. Okay, I understand. I will give up my power of thinking and I will surrender to you. So there is a chitta vritti nirodha. The thinking power has to be brought down and emotional turbulence has to be calmed down. Without which Indra cannot really enter into this space. So what happens is, when we enter into that deeper inner quietude and silence, the lightning flashes from above can come in and reveal. So the role of the mind is to become a receptacle, silent receptacle, so that this can come and illumine the mind. So what will come down is not just illumination and knowledge, but is also power. Power of truth. Indra gives tremendous power. So that's the difference between something that is coming from above that gives you the power of truth that gets revealed in you. So initially in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, we see that he started his yoga in 1905 and he was practicing pranayama. He was like 5 hours of pranayama. Intense. He was so intense, he takes up something, he goes wholeheartedly into it. And he was so intense, he felt sick, seriously ill. Then he had to drop all that. Then he did not know how to go forward. What was the way forward? With the pranayama, he got the powers of poetic skills and tremendous energy, vitality, all that. But in yoga, going forward, he did not know what to do. And that's the time when he met Lele. And Lele told him, you sit and you will see thoughts coming into you. Reject it. Your mind will become silent. So Sri Aurobindo did not question him. He sat. Quietly he saw the thoughts coming in and he rejected the thought. Next thought coming, he rejected it. Within 3 days, he was completely empty. And for Lele himself, it was a miracle. This normally doesn't happen. We know how hard it is to silence the mind. So he did it in 3 days. Since then, he says he was a free intelligence knowledge was pouring into him from all sides. Now this is where the distinction has to be made. One is the normal thought walking into your mind. Then there is a special words coming into you. How do you distinguish? One of the fundamental mistakes many people do is that since the mind has to be silenced, you start imagining that it has to be in absolute silence, and you're holding on to every thought, don't enter into me. Then it builds up all kinds of tension, headache, and you're fighting with thoughts. That won't work. One is to discern the different types of thoughts that are entering into the mind. Have you observed what the type of... No, I don't mean in terms of content. Forget about the content of thought. What is animating thought? And thought unfolds in your mind as word. And for the Vedic Rishi, finding the right word was the key. Mantra. Now, even to invoke Indra, you need mantra. And to go forward, you need the right phrase, the right mantra, the right words. And mind is spammed with all kinds of words from all sides. So on one hand, you have to silence the mind. On the other side, you have to open to the universal intelligence to pour into you. And how do you discern? In your observation, what do you see? What animates your thoughts? That's very fundamental thing to investigate. This is your lab. You have to build your lab. And here thoughts are happening. What is animating thought? Emotions definitely can animate. It's not always emotions that animate.
Life living.
Very broad term, life living. Something, can you be more specific? Memories can animate thought.
Experience or a situation, interaction.
Any of the sensory encounters can trigger thought.
Different movements.
So,
reflection.
All of them can.
Need for reason also.
Yeah, mind is busy with, I have to find a reason.
Solution.
Yeah, you have to find a solution. You are suddenly having a problem and the mind is chewing on the problem. I have to find solution to this thing.
Justification.
Yeah, another form is justification.
One could be also quest. Like a
Yeah.
quest for something can also trigger it.
That could be a quest. So there are quite many forces that are at play animating thought. Now we have to find a way to give some space for Indra, higher consciousness, to come in and discern between this whole janta who are already there. So one of the very, very basic stuff of thought is very mechanical undercurrent of thought. The mechanical mind, which is a recycled junk. It is running like a automation. Like you have nothing to do, no problem to solve. You're just sitting, but some stuff is just queuing. You are not interested in it. But this fellow goes on. So that is a very, very low level movement of thought animated by simple physical consciousness, habitual undercurrent of thought. Useless, junk. It has no role other than just keep going, wandering. Then comes, this is like at a physical level. Purely physical consciousness animates mind and thought, and it creates this habitual, random, recycled thought. Then just on the top of it, next layer comes when the vital animates thought. That's when you had a sensory interaction with anything, you saw something, it triggered thought. Someone said a word, it hurt you so badly, your emotions are all charged up, and then it is spinning your mind with all kinds of words, narrative stories, completely. So that's vital driving. Similarly, any desire that wakes up, it will immediately grip the mind, and it has to use your power of mind. So these are all vital animating thought. We need to very clearly discern here is this thought is animated by the vital, this thought is animated by the just habitual. Then when you drop all this and someone gives you a problem to solve, then you start, okay, planning. I have to go to Bangalore, I have to book a ticket, and this is the timeline, and this is the plan, and all these things. You use reason as much as possible. But then the problem is solved, you drop it. Then either some hurt, some emotion, somebody said something or irritating, some sensory irritation comes, and then the thought is gripped by it. And thoughts are driven by it. So thoughts are moved by all this, and highest possibility of thought is to take that movement and use rational intelligence. That is highest. But we use it seldom. Very little as and when it is required. Most of the time it is the vital that drives the mind. Therefore the Chitta Vritti Nirodha come into the picture, the purification, yama, niyama, according to Patanjali in our yoga, it is purification of the intelligent will. The mind is freed from the mechanical thoughts, from the vital impulsion thoughts, and then its own rational intelligence and thinking. So that's then the mind's own limitation is there, that beyond reason can take us only to a certain extent. So all these are there, all these are silenced, all these are brought to certain quietude. Then only we can begin to receive something. And this also it's happening to everyone, but it happens once in a while. You get suddenly an inspired thought, it is well formed. Have you experienced that? Something just come to you, nicely manufactured, like a poem comes completely, almost like a flow that forms itself rhythmically and completes, and he's a baby. Very beautiful. That's a sign that it is coming from a higher source. There is no struggle involved in it. We call it inspiration. Right? I got inspired and something, suddenly it came and I just wrote it down. And usually good writers, they know how to catch it.
Poetry is closer to it.
Yeah, poetry, all these are part of it. So the reason why we give great importance to art, poetry, all this is this opens to something that is beyond reason. And the more silent you are, the more well-formed it will come. And when ashram sadhaks were writing, poetry writing was a big practice for them. And they used to send to Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo used to comment. So, Nirodha had sent one poem to him, and Sri Aurobindo was commenting, I can see the triceps, you pull it out. It was not coming, the inspiration was coming, so you are dragging it down. So you will see the mental construction in it. When mind constructs something, the formations are there, the mind's own structure. So he could discern poetry coming from where, which level. And even when you read poetry, many things are very rational poetry. It's rational intelligence explaining things, still operating at a level of reason. Some are operating at a level of emotions. You are expressing emotions. Some come from a higher source where it uses, rather the light clothes itself in imagery, and it will come with certain rhythm. And that's what becomes the mantric poem. The mantra will come to you that way, finding the right word. And that cannot happen with struggling with thinking. So Indra will send the lightning bolts into your mind, only when the mind is well prepared and Agni is well lit. Agni is what? Agni is the seer will, or the, first of all, seer, the witness, the Sakshi, and there is this deep aspiration. And if Agni is the lower pole, Sri Aurobindo refers to Agni as the force instinct with knowledge, and Indra is knowledge instinct with force. And when this is calling, that will respond. But how do you call Indra? Which is not by mental will. Mental will can support. This is where that flame of aspiration come into the picture. And aspiration is not will. Aspiration is not desire. Aspiration is not ambition. These are all, desire and ambition belong to the vital, and will is of the mind. When Sri Aurobindo started writing The Life of Divine, the first chapter is human aspiration. And it is there everywhere, in everything. And it wakes up in humanity to seek that higher perfection. And it is there. And we can become instruments of that by consciously recognizing there is something in me seeking some noble cause, some noble purpose. And how to be silent with that and yet keep it steady. It is when you keep it steady, the response will come. And the silent movement of aspiration in us, one way in its beautiful form is adoration. Other is like a silent prayer. How do you pray without words? We had a discussion about how to clarify what is a prayer. How do you pray without words? And here is where flowers come into picture. Mother refers to flowers as the presence of that psychic aspiration, the prayer of matter towards that higher consciousness. And by connecting with flowers, we connect to that force in that flower. You can also, like when sun is setting, sun is just going down and it has gone a bit down. There is this twilight time when there is a very strong movement in nature. It's like something is really missing the sun. I remember listening to Hariprasad Chaurasia once. He was playing this moment in his flute where the sun is setting, moon is yet to come, and there is this ardent prayer in nature. And that's a kind of inner state we need to cultivate. And not an attempt to control and conquer, but of a love and adoration, a silent prayer that is there in nature. So Indra was asking Agastya, now come down, you offer sacrifice to me. And in yajna is again the process of this self-offering. And that self-offering becomes joyful, beautiful, when there is this adoration and self-giving to that which is above. So then we have some clearing in which this well-formed thoughts can enter. That is when you receive it in the mind. And when you receive it in the body, you will see that you are doing things just in time, the right things at the right place. You turn up at the right place at the right time, you meet the right people. without any planning, things start falling in place. These days, you will say synchronicity, or you will also say the divine conspiracy. So the intuition is operating through you, where you see, when people have certain intuition, they know. You pick up things. If you have to take salt from when you're cooking, now the finger knows. You don't even have to taste anything. You just know it, and you can look at things, and you know, okay, how to do this. And when you have that intuition developed in you, when you have that gift in you, or rather the nature of the gifts that you are come with, is that you see something, you have never got training in it, but you know, I can do it. You have experienced that. When it is not your skill, your talent, you have to struggle it. You have to struggle through to learn and acquire something. But when it is inborn, you see it, yeah, I know it. And a little bit of introduction by somebody is enough. Yeah, I got it. I will do. And when the mind is well trained, when it becomes increasingly silent, when the heart is peaceful, then the pouring begins. And you learn to distinguish. But the problem is, you receive a little bit, vital get excited. And it muddle it up. And on the top of it, the physical nature and its inertia is dragging you down. And all the old fellows have not yet gone anywhere. They are still, the old buddies are there. It's just that you have seen the possibility. You have seen the possibility, you have received some glimpses, but you still can't move forward. You are dragged down by the forces of inertia, the forces of desire, the forces of fear, and all the pent-up things that won't let you go. There is stuff sitting, and stuff individual, stuff collective, family stuff, everything is sitting there, and it won't let you go. And this is where Agni as the priest rising from below, and the right knowledge, that become force in action. That Chit becomes Shakti. That's when the Agni truly burns. The will is formed that can cut through this difficulty. Otherwise, you got awareness, you got some knowledge, but you are not able to apply it. And as you learn to be more and more silent, so Chittavritti, all this have come to silence. So when the mind becomes silent, the heart becomes calm, and the body becomes still, then Indra or the higher ranges can begins to come down. It can operate. So then what happens is Marut will work for Indra. Mind, mental substance, and the Prana Shakti below, they will receive that and give it shape. Mind's role is to give shape to thought, to images. It's a receiver of knowledge. It's not a creator of knowledge. And this is a very fundamental aspect of Vedic yoga as well as integral yoga. The mind and thinking, this is not the means to know. If it is silence, it can receive knowledge into it. Then your power of thinking begins to evolve. The mental substance begins to become more supple, receptive. So you were asking about the thinking, like how do I learn, or how do I expand this capacity of arriving at truth? So the ancient method was this combined with tapas. That is, normally our consciousness is scattered. It's spreading all over. So use the mental will to gather. You concentrate. Use the mental will to concentrate. And you concentrate only upon one mantra. one phrase. So that's a way when you hold it, three things happen. Like in the concentration chapter, Sri Aurobindo explains it very well. How do you develop this power of receiving the right knowledge? So when you concentrate, when you take up one thing and hold dharana, when dharana continues, it becomes dhyana. And dhyana deepens and becomes samadhi. Samadhi is not trance, you become that which you are meditating upon. So first thing is, when you hold something for sufficiently long, which is very well explained and illustrated in the story of Bhriguvalli in Taittiriya Upanishad, where the son goes to his father and say, "Father, tell me about Brahman. Now I have grown up, you please teach me what is Brahman." And so father saw that he is ready for finding knowledge. And father tell him just one line. Annam pranam, annam pranam, chakshushrotram, mano vacham iti. Got it? It's pure Sanskrit, but you can understand it, right? Annam pranam chakshushrotram mano vacham iti. This is it. You want to find Brahman? Food, breath, seeing, hearing, thinking and speech. Father wouldn't give him a big long lecture, nothing. So this is his mantra for holding. So he will go on and he will take up annam. He will not take up the whole thing. He will take up annam. What is annam? So he goes on meditating no matter what he is doing. Grazing cows, doing household things. This is where the mind is held. Then when you concentrate, when you do tapas, we can see in our ancient stories that rishis did tapas. Whatever they want to acquire, they do tapas. Tapas is taking up a phrase. You need to find the right phrase or a right image and stick to it. And then it will begin to release. The giver of light will reveal the lights. And when you are well prepared, you receive the right knowledge. And from the knowledge, next stage is you start experiencing. You start getting it as experience. Third stage is you become that. So he contemplated on this and he discovered everything is nothing but food. It is coming out of food, it is sustained by food and it returns to food, and he goes back to father and say, I discovered this. It's all food. The whole world, Brahman is food. Food chain. He discovered the food chain. Everything is sustained by that. And father says, okay, that is true, but not yet the whole truth. There is beyond that. So he goes back and pick up further concentration, and then he discovers that it is all nothing but prana. Everything is born out of prana. The energy sustains, and everything eventually becomes energy. Like that he goes all the way finally to the Ananda, and he discovers finally everything is born out of delight, sustained by delight, and returns to delight. At that stage father will say, now you know. So the key to develop the mind is concentration. That's why we have the Matri Mandir. Gathering, but concentrating on what? Our mind is running around here and there. And there are all kinds of teachings and people, and you get confused with such a big shopping mall of things. Right? So how do you pick up your phrase? What is the image? What is the word? That is your word working for you. That has come for you. How do you know? How do you currently pick up things?
Something something stays, and when something repeats, like in current experience, there is a mantra which is repeated. I heard a lot of mantras chanted, but one is which is staying and I repeat it.
Yes, that exactly is how you pick up things that are meant for you. There is certain resonance. You sat and listened something for an hour, but one phrase, it gently lands on you and it gives an aha moment and it will come back to you. There is something there. Now, in our journal writing, this is something that we are trying to get you into. That is, through free flow writing, it's not that whole content that you write, but that moment of insight where something lands on you, something opens up. That phrase, it entered through a set of words. Sometimes it will come in as an imagery. So both image and word, nama and rupa, are the means by which mind can pick up, and when it is rhythmic, when it has a measured rhythm, mind can hold it nicely. So these days, this is a huge business now. Slogans, advertising, catchphrases, so that it will ring through people, and even if it is not ringing through, they will ring it through. No, instead of showing a whole movie on Coca-Cola, there is a 30-second ad that is repeated 100 times. So even if you don't want it, it is like imprinted through repetition, and they do it rhythmically. Generally, the words come with a rhythm and come with sensation, come with emotion, with beautiful imagery, so that it gets etched into you. It's a tremendous power, but misused. We can use the same power, but you pick up what is Indra sending. What is rising from below and what is coming from above meets in your heart, where something wakes up. That's it. I got something. And you may not still have a clear way to explain it, but you have something. And if you concentrate on it, you may articulate it in a short phrase that is rhythmic, or you draw it out as into an image that you can hold. And as you hold, it will grow. And the more you become silent, open mind, open heart, open body, the more Indra can pour in, or a higher consciousness can pour in. And more it will take up the substance of the mind, substance of the prana, substance of the body, and start shaping it. That's how the lab gets built. It's not by our capacity. So Agastya had to surrender to Indra and let's all work together with Agni. Indra will lead us. So the Indra will send those flashes of intuition that precisely gets transcribed into the mind. And it will show where the cows are hidden in the cave, where you are bound. Like as the intuition start developing, so the powers of intuition will come in. There is inspiration, revelation. These are the two fundamental skills. And in its higher form is referred to as drishti. I don't know where this dot is, drishti and shruti. There are other forms, smriti. It's not just, there is a regular memory of our physical world and there is a great remembrance. Shruti is hearing. Like something in you wakes up and you know, hey, I have to do something. I have some purpose in this world. That's how the remembrance begins to wake up. The true memories begins to come up. And Shruti is the hearing of the truth. And agent is the word. Word falls on your ears and enters and rings through you, and suddenly something wakes up. You see or you receive a vision. A rishi is someone who habitually possesses these faculties. Drishti, Shruti, Smriti, all this. So truth seeing, truth hearing, truth remembrance. And they begins to enter and shape the mind, shape the vital, shape the physical. And they enter into the physical subconscious, and that's where the habits are binding you into the past. They enter into it, and this light and its force and substance breaks the resistances and release the waters. Destroys the snake. In that process, you open up. So it's not the will of Agastya, not even his power of thought. It's Indra coming in and taking up this substance and shaping it. And gods descend and take birth in the human nature.
Is the symbolism also in here? You said it destroys the snake, but what's the symbolism of the snake?
Snake is the one that binds you it's in the subconscious cave. It binds and hold back the treasures of your inner wealth, inner waters. And slaying of the snake, you release the waters. Waters is really like your energies, your divine energies that are all held up, locked up inside. So that makes you strong. When the force enters and force works through you.
That's the reference in the Kundalini?
No, Vedic narratives doesn't refer to the Kundalini, but they refer to the forces of the treasures that are held in the cave. The vocabulary of Kundalini came at least 1500, yeah, around 2000 years after Vedas. When the tantric system was developed, they used the language of Kundalini. This snake is different snake. This is to be slain by Indra's intuition lights entering into the cave and destroying. So from there, the hidden treasures, the wealth of knowledge and capacity for action, all that enters into you. And that opens the possibilities. And it's not by our effort, it is this one. And currently humanity is going through that battle our Agastya went through. But we have to learn collectively what it means to upgrade the mind. And this is the process of upgrading the mind. First of all, bringing that peace, silence into it and surrendering that mind so that a higher inspiration can enter and it will use your vocabulary. Because every mind has its vocabulary, its own language, its own set of imagery and past memories. And so it has to use your available resource and it will transcribe it in terms of what you need to know. So traditionally, all the scriptures, these are seen as a dhyana shlokas, that you take up one phrase, you dwell on it, you meditate on it, and eventually the meaning will reveal. to you. And that's what we do with Savitri painting. We take up one phrase, one line, and we paint, so that you have sufficient concentration upon one line, going deep into it, diving deep into it, so that it can release what it contains. And it will release according to what is appropriate for each one. It's not one fixed meaning. These are portals, powerful doorways to enter. So we shouldn't be standardizing the meaning of Savitri lines. It is a doorway for each person, and in your own group, when you enter, it will reveal different meanings. But the ability to concentrate, sit with it, that when you do it silently, peacefully, that opens the door. Then Indra can enter. But we don't use in integral yoga the vocabulary of Indra or any of that. There are higher ranges of consciousness, and mother's force enter. We directly refers to her, Aditi, Divine Mother, her force directly entering. We bypass all the intermediary. Getting a sense of Indra's work and how to work with our own mind.
Does sometimes when we do collective work, does it accelerate the access of intuition or Indra?
Yes, in the one of the last mantras of Vedas, Vedic rishis, they always chant together. Chanting together amplifies the capacity of everyone. They offer sacrifice together. So there is a power in that collective harmonization. And the chant together to let our minds be united, let our hearts be united. So when we come together with one common aspiration, then everything gets aligned, then the whole thing is amplified. The fire gets highly powerful and strong, and then the response of the gods also will pour in. But each one in the group must know how to offer sacrifice, how to do the yajna. That's the key. In a group, when one person is enough to create disharmony in the group. So what it means to surrender to the group consciousness and its highest call, that will enable everyone to ascend together. And for that to happen, we need to surrender the individual separate ego. Me has to be taken out of the picture. We has to come in as a first priority. And in the leadership qualities required for the future leaders, and Mother explains that you should not be there in the picture. It's not about you. You are the whole. You have to identify with the whole and what is the best for the whole. And that's a shift every individual has to make. Me-centric to this we, and that we has to eventually embrace the whole humanity, the universal being. And that's where human unity happens. But otherwise, we are caught up in the me-centric view of things. So these higher descending powers are like Saraswati, Ila, all those goddesses of Vedic powers of intuition, Dakshina, Sharama, Saraswati, Ila. Inspiration, revelation, discernment. And Sharama is truly the intuition that smells. This is where the truth is, we're saying.
So the will to do something, or the spirit in which we do the work, gives us the intuition to do it. Or say when we do mother's work here in Aurobindo, we say mother will work through us, and that gives us the intuition. So all these kind of things develop power of intuition. So how does...
Yeah, that when you remove yourself from the story and you see that this is an instrument that is being used by a greater force. But greater force can act through it only if the instrument is calm, quiet, steady, open. Otherwise, we confuse our own impulsions for mother's force. So I see many people see that Mahakali was acting through me and she was shouting around, angry. And we justify all this nonsense, saying that mother was acting through me. When the sign of anything that is coming from high above or from the psychic being is the presence of deep peace. Sign number 1. If there is no peace in you, it's something else. If your body is burning with heat and raging with anger, it's just a vital intensity. Higher consciousness will cool you down, not heat you up. That's one sign. You're not heating up. There is a cooling effect, calming effect, and an increasing stillness. So when the Indra and the higher consciousness brings in and it reshapes the mind, it orders the ordered intuition and it will organize the mind. Like normally, mind has to organize its ideas. There's a conscious way of organizing the mind and its ideas, but much superior ways open to the higher consciousness. It will organize everything. It will start forming the center and create everything around it. And there is a natural organic structure that is meant for you that will get built. So peace, strength, that will come automatically when the truth begins to take up the substance of the mind. And it will settle and you feel the growing confidence in you, which is calm, quiet. And you will also see that it's not you who are doing it. It's not you. It's something else. That's where the adoration comes into the picture. Till then, it is about what do I get, what is my purpose, what will I do, what are my gifts, all that stories. The moment you touch the soul, it's no more about me, it's about that. What do you want me to do? Or what are you doing through me and through all these people, and this whole world is nothing but you. Unless you see that higher divine in all things, and there is a spontaneous adoration and self-giving to that, you cannot become an instrument. It is still the ego, you work through me and do this for me, all that demands. When you get closer to the soul, then you start seeing the divine in all things and operating through each and every one and through you as well. And the more you surrender, more you will discover that you are saying things that you never thought about before. So you enter into a conversation, suddenly you see certain things are being spoken through you, which is amazing. You are learning from your own speech. Things that you never thought about before. The knowledge getting delivered as and when it is required. Not preconceived thoughts. Then you grow in strength. Then you see that, if I stay quiet and if I say more and more silent, it can act much more precisely. Or if I am restless, what I am going to say, then it cannot enter. It cannot act through. Even if it is acting, it will be distorted. We are receiving, but we are receiving in a distorted way, scrambled way, and blocked up. Things are blocked up generally. So when we open up, and when there is a quietude, it will reveal. So it will reveal in thought, it will reveal in speech, it will reveal in your action. And you will also notice the world around you are becoming more and more symbolic. And meaning specially for you. It's you are being guided by that which is everywhere, in everything, and also inside. And there is a constant illumination. And you grow in joy. And that's where Indra and those great gods, they grow in delight. So watch out all trails of delight where this aha moment is. So we, in the journal writing, this is one thing, like look for aha moments. The trails of delight. And that trails of delight is really like sparks, little sparks of fire. As you start gathering, and it starts revealing a picture, and it starts gathering strength, and you start embodying an inspired energy. So when you follow the trails of inspiration, you become inspired. You embody inspiration, and there is a natural ripple that is happening through you, so that when you speak, it is an inspired word that is spoken through you. And that has a spontaneous action in the world. And that is Ananda. And you see that you're absolutely safe and happy in that open condition, and the divine is acting through, and Indra is pouring down, and the aspiration is growing more and more, more and more. And there is this constant self-giving and receiving abundantly. The rains of intuition. All that come into the picture. So that is Agastya story, Indra story, Marut's.
Did Agastya surrender? Agastya surrendered?
Yeah, he surrendered. He understood. This is a greater power he should surrender to, and Marut, Agastya surrender, and with Agni they together, and then Indra leads them.
When we say Indra descent, Drishti, Shruti, Smriti are very feminine names. We also have versions of the story where Indra comes with Saraswati. So I'm wondering what's that.
Yeah, the highest truth in the Vedas is the solar world, and Surya is the god there. But Surya has Usha as a feminine form, and the powers of Surya are like Saraswati, Ila, or powers of intuition, and there are also reference to rivers pouring down. They are quite fluid with gender, but these higher powers are referred as feminine. Indra is pretty much like masculine. These are all areas probably we need to do research to understand, find nuances of their vocabulary and how they shift, why they choose these things. Even a little bit what I have gathered from it is so fascinating, so practical actually. Right? We end with a minute of concentration.